Welcome back to another volume of truly disturbing tales from Reddit. Today we're going to be narrating 3 new unsettling stories taken directly from the platform. I encourage you all to sit back, grab a snack, and enjoy these terrifying personal accounts. Now, without any further delay, let's jump right in. Remember those early days of the internet? AOL software upgrades arrived in the mail on a CD-ROM. Family members often shouted across the house at one another if an incoming call on the landline interrupted the painstaking 10 minutes that it took to get from the America Online sign-in screen to hearing "You've got mail" reverberate throughout the room. Recipients of multicolored chain emails truly pondered the threat against their luck for the next 7 years if they didn't abide by the message's command to forward it on to 7 friends. Better not risk it, we told ourselves as we quickly typed out 7 email addresses in the recipient field. And finding everything there was to know about a person online, something that anyone can do today with a few keystrokes and a credit card, was a lot harder to do back then. But not for Corey. I was 15 years old at the time. Ambiguous and exotic usernames like 𝐕𝐴33 or 𝐵runettBaby87 were all the rage. Naive as we early screen name pioneers were, this anonymity was smart. Social media was in its infancy. 𝐤𝐨𝐬 was the go-to haven for teens and tweens to vent their angst while informing the world they were currently listening to screaming infidelities by Dashboard Confessional. Everyone was friends with Tom on MySpace. AOL Instant Messenger didn't exist as a standalone messenger service just yet, so it was MSN Messenger or bust. But if you had a true AOL account like I did, you were set up with all you needed to discover this new, hyper-connected, free-for-all world of the early 2000s, World Wide Web. Your own email inbox, a new page to create a personal profile, access to chat rooms on just about any topic or hobby you could possibly imagine. It was exhilarating, until it was terrifying. One afternoon, I jumped into one of these random chat rooms. ASL, 16, female, Boston. I watched the usual exchange between total strangers scroll across my screen for several minutes, hoping to find my opportunity to finally chime in and introduce myself. Ultimately, I got bored and left the chat without typing a single word, when an instant message appeared on my screen. "You didn't say anything," the message read. "Why not?" "Who is this?" I responded, confused by the username that I didn't recognize. "I'm Corey," he responded. "I'm 16, 8th grade in Lake Charles, Louisiana. What about you?" 16 and in the 8th grade? Yikes. And yet, I was intrigued. "So, did you get held back twice, or what?" I teased. And so the conversation began. We struck up a brief online friendship that afternoon. He shared a photo. Freckled face, brown hair, nothing I'd rate above a 5 on hot or not. Yet, despite the friendliness, I refused to tell him where I was from, or anything personal about me beyond my first name and age. I knew little about the dangers of the internet, but I wasn't dumb either. My username was a fruity drink and some numbers, right? Safe enough is what I figured. For background, I did have one of those AOL user profiles. Its standard features included a profile picture and a questionnaire to fill out fun facts about yourself. My photo was one of me with several friends, with no indication of which one was me whatsoever. A few days later, Corey messaged me out of the blue. "You're beautiful." "What?" "Brunettes with green eyes, man," he responded. Somehow, despite my photo containing 3 other friends, he'd accurately identified me. "I would love to see you sometime." I felt my skin prick. I politely told him something to the effect of that not being possible, and quickly logged myself off. Friday the following week, I was sleeping over at my best friend's house. I was logged into my account in the background as we thirstily browsed cute guys on Hot or Not. "Who's messaging you?" my friend asked. I knew it was Corey. "Hey, you live in Houston. Your parents are Jim and Sarah, and you live at 1655 South Grand." Now, you know that feeling when you're on a roller coaster during a sharp drop and your heart jumps up into your throat? That was that moment. Fortunately, we managed to find that AOL did in fact have a block user feature that night. That was it. So long, creepy 16-year-old middle schooler with scarily good online sleuthing skills. Although, that goodbye didn't last long. The next day, a screen name similar to Corey's messaged me. He had another account. I quickly blocked that one too. This happened no fewer than 5 more times. I finally went dark for a while. Sure, I missed the thrill of seeing the yellow envelope appear in my virtual mailbox, but it was better than the threat of being harassed by Corey. A few weeks later, I got home from school one afternoon. My little sister was a baby at that time, 14 years my junior, so she had a nanny who stayed with her during the day while my parents were at work. When I walked through the kitchen door, the nanny handed me the phone. "It's for you," she said with a quizzical look on her face. "Who is it?" "I really don't know. Some boy with a twang in his voice. Sounds like he's from East Texas or Louisiana or something." Oh, God. "Hello?" I finally muttered into the phone. "Hey, pretty thing. It's Corey. Hey, so my friends and I are all into the show Jackass. We're thinking of making a trip over to Houston and doing some pranks around town next week. How hilarious would it be if we surprised you at your front door?" I choked out a nervous laugh, mumbled some excuse about having a quiz the next day, and quickly hung the receiver up. For the next few weeks, I slept with a kitchen knife under my mattress. I was absolutely terrified that I'd wake up to this Lake Charles stranger boy on the balcony outside of my window. How did he get my phone number anyway? But just as soon as he'd invaded my sense of security, he seemingly disappeared. No instant messages, no uninvited calls to my home. The knife finally went back to its respective kitchen drawer. 2 months had passed, and it felt gloriously safe. Until the phone rang the first week of summer break. "Hi," the voice said curtly. "Who is this?" I politely demanded. "It's me, Corey." Now, let me be clear. This wasn't the same voice that I'd heard 2 months ago. That voice was dripping in southern syrup. It was young and full of mischief. This new voice was different. It was cold and lacked any discernible accent whatsoever. It was also much older. I knew that I was speaking to a grown man. "I'm sorry I haven't been able to talk to you," he hurriedly blurted. Why did he sound so rushed? "I just feel terrible, but the police came to my house. They took my computers away from me. I can't say why, but don't worry. I'll come to Houston soon." That was the last day I used that fruity username. I deleted that account and created a new one. I embarrassingly told my parents I'd made a huge mistake, despite having shared nothing that could have easily revealed my personal identity. Even if I had, the threat back then wasn't what it is now. This was almost 20 years ago. People simply didn't have the online presences that they do today. As a teenager with no social media yet, I was virtually a ghost. But still, I was convinced I was somehow culpable for this stranger, this man, a predator who clearly had advanced knowledge of computers and the internet, singling me out and making it his mission to learn everything about me through whatever means possible. He was determined to get to me. I'm only grateful that even at 15, I knew better than to trust that this freckle-faced kid from an online chat room had fully benign intentions. 2 decades later, I still find myself wondering where Corey ended up. Hopefully, behind bars. I've been perusing this side of Reddit for quite some time now. But only today am I ready to stop being a lurker and contribute my story to the discourse. Living in a large metropolitan area such as London, I've unfortunately been accosted and assaulted a few times in my life. But nothing competes with your very first. And that's what I'd like to share with you today. This also happens to be the scariest instance of them all. I was 8 years old at the time, visiting my grandparents who lived in London. At that point, I didn't live here yet and was just visiting for the summer. I was on a day outing with my parents and our visiting American friend. Let's call her Laura. My dad grew up in London, so he wanted to take us sightseeing, and we had done the Tower of London, Trafalgar Square, and were wandering through the Oxford Street area, just window shopping. I remember trailing slightly behind my parents for just a moment and looking into a busy cafe as I walked. It had a countertop bar where there were two large ladies perched on stools eating ice cream. All of a sudden, I remember watching these two ladies fall off the sides of their chairs and onto the floor, almost in slow motion. It was like a dream sequence, and I recall the music from the cafe sounding like it was underwater and slowed down, if even for just a moment. Except, they didn't fall to the floor. Actually, it was me. All I remember next is a huge, shooting pain in my back, and Laura screaming over me while I watched my mom sprinting away through the busy crowd forming, full of shocked faces, looking at me with concern. My dad was on his phone, and I remember being particularly angry because mobile phones were new at the time, and he was non-stop on his. I later found out that he was calling the police, not work. So what had actually happened, whilst I thought these fat ladies were falling off their chairs, was a homeless man in a heavy coat had emerged from the crowd, picked me up by the coat collar, and slammed my body down onto the pavement. My mom had immediately run after him, chasing him down a busy London street until he pulled a huge knife on her, and somehow she and 3 men nearby managed to disarm and hold the man until the police arrived, which apparently took no more than 2 minutes. At the time, I had absolutely no recollection of being attacked. I was excited to ride in an ambulance and a police car to go to the station. I asked to see a cell and remember getting given a pen by a police officer. I remember being in a bit of pain but couldn't understand the fuss over me by the paramedic. But boy, did that pain really set in later on. I must have had some sort of adrenaline going on where I was in shock and feeling next to nothing. It's amazing how a child's mind works when it's in protection mode. As a side note, apparently I'd wake up screaming every night for months after this, saying that this man was in my room, according to my mom. I only remember it happening once, but even that is kind of striking. As a result of this attack, I had a cracked rib and several giant black bruises all over my chest and back from the impact of hitting the pavement and his grip. Even later in life, I can still remember his face quite clearly, and now I remember just how high he picked me up before throwing me down. This particular memory was triggered by receiving my birthday lumps as a teen, and it all came rushing back in the most bizarre way. What I didn't learn until my early adulthood shakes me to my core, and I can understand why my parents didn't share this with me as a child. Like I mentioned earlier, this man had a large knife that he obviously was not afraid to use. It turns out that he had been using that knife for quite some time, often victimizing others, and in certain situations, extinguishing their lives. He had even been so brazen as to assault another young girl the previous day, slashing her in the face while simply walking down the street. While the police were aware of this man and searching for him for months even, they were only able to apprehend him the day of my attack, thanks to the actions of my mom and those passerbys willing to help. I guarantee that man didn't account for my slightly insane, yet fearless mama chasing him after he body slammed her little girl. Starting that day, he was no longer free to terrorize innocent people on the street. I don't know his name, and I don't know how long he went away for, but I personally hope that he's still locked away tight. Although I've resigned myself to never knowing for sure. All I can say, especially given the context with which I'm delivering this story, is that I pray to never meet that man again. I have 2 Australian shepherds. One is my personal dog, and the other is a foster. Both are roughly 70 pounds. I took them on a walk today at one of our local wilderness areas that consists of about 50 miles of trails in total. I've been there dozens of times with just my dog and never had any problems. Anyway, we're walking down the trail, and these dogs do bark at a few people that we see. Every time I see someone, we step to the side off the trail and let them pass. I apologize to the people on behalf of the dogs. Most people generally smile and just keep on walking, and we all carry on. So when I see this one guy approaching, the dogs go into their alert mode, and we step off trail so he can pass. He practically gets right up next to us and stops before saying, "Oh, I don't think your dogs like me." I tell him, "No, they're just nervous. I apologize for them being so loud, and at this point, I'm holding them by their harnesses, so they're super close to me. But they're going absolutely bonkers. Angry barking, lunging, growling, the whole range. I know that's not great behavior, but nonetheless." He tells me, "I'm sorry they don't like me. I'm so sorry." At this point, I'm weirded out because he's not broken eye contact and seems rather unfazed by the dogs. I again tell him it's okay, not his fault, and I tell the dogs, "Let's go," and begin to guide them away. We're pretty much past him at this point when he calls out, saying that he's going to keep moseying up the trail. I say all right, and tell him to have a good day, and we walk off in opposite directions. I thought it was a strange interaction, but hey, we can all be a little weird, so I didn't dwell too much on it. About 2 minutes later though, I hear him call out from behind me, and I turn to see him rapidly approaching. He says, I really want to be friends with your dogs. I don't want to leave them on bad terms, and I want to make friends," as he keeps walking up. When I come up on nervous dogs, I tend to leave them alone. Or, if I do try to make friends, I squat down, talk gently to them, extend a hand, things like that. He never did any of this though, and I swear, he never even looked at my dogs, because he kept his gaze trained on me the whole time. This time, the dogs are going absolutely nuts again, but I don't grab their harnesses. I let them have the full length of the leash to put some distance between us and that man. He keeps repeatedly saying that he just wants to be friends. I tell him I don't think it'll happen, and that my dogs just aren't there yet. He does try to approach still, but the dogs have none of that. He eventually says, "I'm sorry, I don't think they're going to be friends with me." But again, he isn't even looking at the dogs. So I tell him affirmatively, no, they're not, and they won't be letting him get any closer. He finally turns and leaves, and I take out my phone to call my sister to keep me company for the remainder of the walk. So, is it annoying that my dogs freak out over the mailman or the neighbors or a knocking noise on a TV show? Yes it is. I don't know for a fact that this man today had bad intentions, but I'm damn sure glad that they were there and made it abundantly clear he wasn't getting anywhere near me. I'll probably work with them on calming down quicker, but I have no plans to have them befriend strangers at first sight. And if ever your dogs, reactive or otherwise, give you that stiff, on-guard feeling when a stranger approaches, don't be so quick to explain it away. Don't try and disregard their senses. Those may very well keep you safe if they ever present themselves. Be safe, everybody.